The quiet harbor station floated in the darkness of space like a small island of light. It was far from any planet, far from any war, and far from any trouble. At least, that was what everyone believed. Dr. Una Park stood by the large window in the research lab, watching the purple and blue colors of the Vulfary Nebula. She had lived on this station for 3 years now. It was her home. The aliens around her had become her friends, her family. When she first arrived, many of them were afraid of her. Humans came from Earth, a planet so dangerous that most species called it a death world. The gravity was heavy. The weather was violent. Diseases and predators filled every corner. Any creature that survived such a place had to be strong, fast, and deadly. But Una was a scientist, not a soldier. She studied alien plants and animals. She was quiet and kind. Over time, the aliens on the station learned that humans were not monsters. They were just different. Dr. Park, a clicking voice said behind her. The samples from Sector 7 are ready. Una turned and smiled at Ambassador Krillix. He was a Vethany, an insectoid species with 4 arms and large compound eyes that reflected the light like jewels. He was not really her assistant, but he enjoyed helping with research when his diplomatic duties were slow. Thank you, Krillix, she said. I will check them soon. The station held over 4,000 beings from 12 different species. They worked together on science projects that would help all of them. It was a place of peace and cooperation. The Galactic Union was proud of it. Una walked through the curved hallways toward the communication center. She wanted to check on her friend Tae-Sung Cho, the human communications officer. There were only 37 humans on the whole station, so they all knew each other while Tae-Sung sat at his console, his eyes moving across several screens at once. He was young, maybe 25 years old, with short black hair and a serious face. But when he saw Una, he smiled. Una, come to keep me company? Just passing by, she said. Anything interesting today? Nothing much. Some trade ships in the next system. A few scientific reports from the Union. He leaned back in his chair. It's quiet. I like quiet. Una nodded. Quiet was good. Quiet meant safe. Then everything changed. A loud alarm cut through the air. Red lights began flashing on Tae-Sung's console. His smile disappeared as he read the data coming in. That's impossible, he whispered. What is it? Una asked, her heart beginning to beat faster. Ships, many ships, coming out of hyperspace at the edge of the sector. His fingers moved quickly across the controls. Over 200 of them. Overseer Neth appeared at the door. He was a Delaney, a tall aquatic species with smooth blue skin and large dark eyes. He commanded the station with calm wisdom, but now his face showed worry. What is happening? Neth asked. A fleet, Tae-Sung said. They are broadcasting their identification now. He went pale as he read the signal. It's the Raxon Dominion. The name sent cold fear through everyone who heard it. The Raxon were conquerors. They traveled across the galaxy, taking what they wanted and destroying what they did not need. They had swallowed dozens of worlds. They showed no mercy. Why are they here? Neth asked. We are in neutral territory. We have no military value. The answer came moments later when the main screen lit up with a transmission. A Raxon appeared on the screen. He was massive, with thick gray skin like armor and 4 eyes that burned with cruel intelligence. His name was Warlord Desek, and he commanded the invasion fleet. Attention, station, Desek said. His voice was deep and cold. You are now property of the Raxon Dominion. You have 1 hour to surrender completely. Lower your shields. Open your docks. If you obey, some of you may live as servants. If you resist, we will destroy you all. The transmission ended. Panic spread through the station like fire. Aliens ran through the hallways, screaming and crying. Parents grabbed their children. Scientists abandoned their equipment. Everyone wanted to escape, but there was nowhere to go. Overseer Neth tried to keep order. Everyone, please, go to the evacuation pods in an orderly way. But there were not enough pods. The station was not designed for emergency escape. It was designed for peace. Ambassador Krillix found Yuna in the chaos. His forehands were shaking. Dr. Park, what do we do? The Raxan will kill us all. Yuna took a deep breath. She was scared too, but she could not show it. We stay calm. We help others. We do what we can. In the communication center, Taesung was not running. He was not panicking. He was working. Yuna pushed through the crowd to reach him. Taesung, what are you doing? We need to evacuate. There is no evacuation, he said without looking up. Not enough pods. Even if there were, the Raxan would shoot them down. His fingers moved across the console, changing frequencies, adjusting power levels. But there is something I can do. What? He activated an old communication system, one that most species no longer used. It was a human system, a simple signal that dated back to ancient Earth. 3 short signals. 3 long signals. 3 short signals. SOS. I am calling home, Taesung said. The signal shot out into space at the speed of light, bouncing through relay stations, crossing vast distances in seconds. It reached a human patrol vessel 3 systems away. It reached a listening post near the border of human space. It reached Earth Command on Luna Base. Yun watched him work. Will they come? Will they come in time? Taesung finally looked at her. His eyes were tired but determined. Yuna, that signal says that humans are in danger. It says we need help. He turned back to his screens. They will come. I promise you, they will come. Outside the station, the Raxan fleet moved closer. 200 warships, armed with weapons that could destroy cities, crewed by soldiers who knew only war. They had conquered species far stronger than the beings on this station. Warlord Desek watched from his command ship. He was already bored. This would be easy. 1 hour was generous. These scientists and diplomats would surrender in half that time. He did not know about the SOS signal. He did not know that 3 systems away, a human captain was reading the distress call with growing anger. He did not know that on Luna Base, Admiral Hannah Beak was being woken from her sleep. He did not know that across human space, ships were beginning to move, crews were reporting to duty, and a response was forming that would shake the galaxy. The Raxan had made a terrible mistake. They had threatened humans. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the Deathworlders were coming. Luna Base sat on the gray surface of Earth's moon. It was the heart of human military command, the place where decisions were made that protected all of human space. Thousands of officers worked there, watching sensors, coordinating fleets, and planning for dangers that might never come. Fleet Coordinator Myra Kang was working the night shift when the signal arrived. She was young for her position, only 32 years old, but she had earned her place through hard work and sharp thinking. When the SOS came through, she recognized it immediately. Code Red, she announced to the officers around her. Civilian distress signal from the Quiet Harbor Research Station. Hostile fleet identified as Raxan Dominion. Over 4,000 civilians at risk, including 37 humans. The room became very quiet. Then it became very loud. Officers rushed to their stations. Calls went out to every ship within range. Data screens filled with fleet positions, travel times, and combat readiness reports. Mira picked up a special communication device and pressed the priority button. This would wake Admiral Hannah Beak, commander of the 7th Human Defense Fleet. Some people might hesitate to wake an admiral in the middle of the night. Myra did not hesitate for even 1 second. Admiral Beak answered within moments. Her voice was clear and sharp, not sleepy at all. "Report. Admiral, we have received an SOS from Quiet Harbor Station. Raxon Dominion Fleet, over 200 ships. They have given the station 1 hour to surrender. That was 12 minutes ago." "Understood. I am coming to Command Center now. Activate Protocol Shepard." Myra felt her heart lift at those words. Protocol Shepard was a standing order in human military law. It said that any distress call from any human, anywhere in the galaxy, would receive immediate military response. No waiting for permission. No calculating costs and benefits. Just action. Within minutes, Admiral Beak walked into the command center. She was a small woman with gray streaks in her black hair and eyes that had seen many battles. She wore her uniform perfectly, as if she had not been sleeping at all. "Status report," she ordered. Myra pulled up the main display. "The 7th Fleet can reach Quiet Harbor in approximately 90 minutes using standard jump routes. However, Captain Dongwu Shin aboard the Eternal Resolve is closer. He can arrive in 40 minutes using emergency jump protocols." Emergency jumps were dangerous. The forces involved could kill most species instantly, but humans were different. Their bodies could survive things that other beings could not even imagine. Admiral Beak nodded. "Contact Captain Shin. Tell him to jump immediately. The main fleet will follow." On the other side of human space, Captain Dongwu Shin received the message aboard his battleship. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a calm face that never showed fear. He had been a soldier for 20 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and hostile aliens. But he had never moved as fast as he did now. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced through the ship's communication system. "We have received a distress call from Quiet Harbor Station. Humans are in danger. We are executing an emergency jump in 5 minutes. Everyone to battle stations." Lieutenant Jiwen Li, his tactical officer, looked up from her console. She was small but fierce, with quick hands and quicker eyes. "Captain, emergency jumps put extreme stress on the crew. Some might be injured." "I know," Shin said. "But if we don't go, 4,000 people will die. Our people are among them. Prepare the jump." Ji-1 nodded and returned to her work. She understood. Every human in the fleet understood. The news spread across human space faster than any ship could travel. The SOS signal was repeated on emergency channels. Civilian broadcasts picked it up. Within 30 minutes, everyone knew. Humans are in danger. Someone needs help. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Ships that were scheduled for repairs launched anyway, their crews saying they could fix problems on the way. Soldiers who were on vacation immediately returned to their bases, some still wearing casual clothes. Retired veterans contacted military offices and offered their personal ships. Cargo ships changed course. Mining vessels abandoned their work. Passenger liners turned around mid-journey when their crews heard the news. They were not ordered to come. They simply came. At the Galactic Union headquarters on a distant planet, alien ambassadors watched the human mobilization with confusion and fear. "This is madness," said a Corellian representative, his snake-like body coiling with anxiety. "The humans are sending their entire fleet for one small station. They will start a galactic war. Perhaps they do not understand the Raxan strength," suggested a Veloxi ambassador, her feathered face showing concern. "Should we warn them?" A human diplomat named Jae-Hyun Yu stood among them. He was a peaceful man who had spent his life building bridges between species. But now his face was hard as stone. "You do not understand," he said quietly. "Those are our people. When humans call for help, other humans answer. It does not matter how far. It does not matter how dangerous. We answer. But why?" The Corellian asked. "Is this station worth so much? Is there something valuable there?" Jahan shook his head. The station is not valuable. The resources are not important. But our people called for help. That is all that matters. The aliens looked at each other. They could not understand. Their species made decisions based on logic, on cost and benefit, on survival. Humans seemed to follow different rules. Back on Luna Base, Admiral Beak watched the fleet coming together. Ships were arriving from every direction. The original plan called for 100 ships. Now there were 163 military vessels, plus dozens of civilian ships that refused to stay behind. Myra Kang approached her with a report. Admiral, the civilian ships are not equipped for combat. Should we order them to stay back? Admiral Beak looked at the display showing all those ships, all those people rushing to help strangers they had never met. No, she said. They want to help. Let them help. The military ships will do the fighting. The civilian ships can assist with evacuation and rescue. On the Eternal Resolve, Captain Shin strapped himself into his command chair. Around him, his crew did the same. Emergency jumps would hit them with forces strong enough to knock out most alien species. Humans would survive, but it would not be pleasant. Jump in 30 seconds. The navigation officer announced. Shin opened a channel to the entire ship. This is the captain. Remember why we are doing this. Remember who's counting on us. When we arrive, we will be outnumbered. We will face a fleet 20 times our size. But we are human. We do not abandon our own. And we do not surrender. The ship hummed with power. Space began to bend around them. Jump in 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7. Shin gripped his armrests. He thought about the people on Quiet Harbor. He thought about Dr. Unipark and Taesung Cho, names he had read in the distress report. He thought about the aliens there too, innocent beings who had done nothing wrong except be in the wrong place. 3, 2, 1, jump. The universe twisted. Colors became sounds. Time became meaningless. The pressure was immense, crushing, unbearable. And then it was over. The Eternal Resolve and 7 escort ships burst out of hyperspace directly between the Raxon fleet and Quiet Harbor Station. They were battered and shaking, their crews gasping for breath. But they were there. They had arrived. And behind them, still traveling through the darkness of space, 163 more ships were coming. Civilian vessels followed them. The largest human fleet in decades was on its way. The Deathworlders had answered the call. Warlord Desik watched the countdown on his command screen. 45 minutes had passed since his ultimatum. 15 minutes remained. The station had not surrendered. He was not surprised. The weak species always waited until the last moment, hoping for a miracle that would never come. Prepare bombardment pattern, he ordered. When the time expires, destroy the station. His officers moved to obey. 200 warships adjusted their positions, weapons charging with deadly energy. This would be quick and simple. Another easy conquest for the Raxon Dominion. Then space itself seemed to tear open. 8 ships exploded out of hyperspace, right in front of the Raxon fleet. They appeared so suddenly that several Raxon vessels had to change course to avoid collision. Alarms screamed across the Dominion formation. Desik stared at the sensor data. 8 ships. 8 small ships against his fleet of 200. And they had used some kind of jump method that should have killed everyone aboard. But the ships were not dead. They were very much alive. And they were broadcasting on all frequencies. Attention Raxon fleet. The voice was calm and clear, speaking perfect galactic common. This is Captain Dongwu Shin of the human battleship Eternal Resolve. Quiet Harbor Station is now under human protection. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. Silence filled the Raxon command bridge. Then Desik began to laugh. Humans, he said, his voice full of contempt. the famous Deathworlders. I have heard stories about your kind. They say you are strong. They say you are dangerous. He leaned forward in his command chair. But you are 8 ships against 200. Your threat is empty. Captain Shin's voice returned, unchanged in its calm tone. This is your final warning. Withdraw or be destroyed. Desic's 4 eyes narrowed with anger. No one gave orders to a Raxan warlord. All ships, destroy those vessels. Leave nothing. The battle began. Missiles and energy beams flew from the Raxan fleet toward the small human formation. It should have been instant destruction. It should have been the end dot, but the human ships moved. They did not move like other ships. They did not fly in straight lines or gentle curves. They spun and rolled and twisted through space in ways that seemed impossible. The Raxan weapons missed again and again, unable to track targets that would not stay still. On the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, Lieutenant Ju-Won Lee worked her console with incredible speed. Her fingers flew across the controls, calculating firing solutions for multiple targets at once. Weapons lock on targets 7, 12, and 15, she announced. Firing. The human ships struck back. Their weapons were precise and deadly. Each shot hit exactly where it was aimed. Raxan vessels exploded one after another, their shields useless against the focused human attacks. Desic watched in shock as 34 of his ships were destroyed in the first 5 minutes. These Deathworlders were not bluffing. They were actually fighting back. And they were winning. Impossible, he whispered. How are they doing this? He did not understand. He could not understand. Human bodies were built for a heavy gravity world where every movement required strength. Human eyes were designed to track fast-moving prey. Human brains could process information at speeds that other species found terrifying. What looked impossible to the Raxan was simply normal for humans. While the space battle raged. A small human shuttle approached Quiet Harbor Station from below, using the battle as cover. It docked quietly at a secondary port. Sergeant Bar M. Han was the first through the door. She was a woman of average height with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. Behind her came 12 Marines in combat armor, their weapons ready. Move fast and stay quiet, she ordered. Our mission is to protect the civilians and prepare for evacuation. We are not here to start fights, but we will finish any that come to us. The Marines spread through the station corridors. They found chaos everywhere. Aliens huddled in groups, crying and praying. Some had tried to barricade doors. Others simply waited for death. Barham found Dr. Yuna Park near the central medical bay. The scientist was helping an injured Bethany, whose leg had been hurt in the panic. Her hands were steady despite the fear that must have been filling her heart. Dr. Park? Barham said. I am Sergeant Han. We are here to help. Yuna looked up with shock and relief. You came. You actually came. Of course we came. Now, I need you to help me organize the civilians. We need to move everyone to the intersections of the station where they will be protected from any hull breaches. Yuna nodded and immediately began helping. Together, they moved through the station, gathering frightened beings and guiding them to safety. Medic Yun Bai Song worked beside them. She was young, barely out of training, but her hands were steady as she treated injuries. Alien bodies were different from human bodies, but she had studied them all. This Delaney has internal bleeding, she announced, examining a wounded alien. I need to operate now or he will die. The surgery she performed would have seemed brutal to other species. She cut fast and deep, her movements rough by alien standards. But she knew what she was doing. Gentle surgery would take too long. The patient needed action, not comfort. The Delaney survived. Outside in space, the battle was turning against the humans. 8 ships could not fight forever against 200. The Eternal Resolve took a direct hit that knocked out half its shields. 2 escort ships were damaged badly. Captain Shin stood on his shaking bridge, watching the situation develop. They had bought time. They had destroyed many enemy ships. But it was not enough. "Captain," the sensor officer called out. "The Raxan are concentrating fire on us. All weapons targeting our position." Shin nodded. He had expected this. "All power to forward shields. Prepare for impact." The Raxan missiles came in waves. The Eternal Resolve shook and groaned under the assault. Fires broke out on several decks. Crew members were thrown against walls. But no one panicked. No one ran. They simply did their jobs. "Hull breach on deck 7, someone reported. "Seal it," Shin ordered. "Weapon systems at 60%. Keep firing. Shields failing." Shin took a deep breath. This might be the end. But if it was the end, he would face it standing. Then the sensor officer made a sound that was almost a sob. But it was not a sound of despair. It was a sound of joy. "Captain." New contacts. Hundreds of new contacts emerging from hyperspace. Shin looked at the main screen. His tired face broke into a smile. The sky was full of ships. Human ships. Battleships and cruisers and destroyers all arriving at once. Among them were civilian vessels too, freighters and passenger ships that had come to help. Admiral Hanabeek's voice filled all frequencies. "This is the 7th Human Defense Fleet to all Raxam vessels. You have attacked beings under our protection. You have fired upon our ships. Now face the consequences." Desek stared at his sensors in horror. His fleet of 200 suddenly seemed very small. The Deathworlders had arrived. All of them. And they were angry. On the station, Bioram heard the announcement through her communication device. She turned to Yuna with a fierce smile. "The fleet is here," she said. "Now the real fight begins." Yuna looked out a window at the flashes of light filling space. Ships were moving everywhere, weapons firing, explosions blooming like deadly flowers. But she was not afraid anymore. The humans had come. Admiral Hanabeek stood at the center of her flagship's command bridge, watching the battle unfold on the massive display screens. Around her, officers worked with quiet efficiency, each one doing their job without needing orders. "All ships, attack formation Delta 7, she commanded. "Cruiser groups target their heavy vessels. Destroyer squadrons protect our flanks. Fighter wings launch immediately." 163 warships moved as one. They had trained together for years. They knew each other's movements the way a person knows their own hands. When one ship moved left, its partner moved right. When one fired, another was already aiming at the next target. But the human fleet was not alone. Behind the warships came civilian ships, dozens of them. Cargo vessels, mining platforms, passenger liners. Their crews were not soldiers. They had no weapons. But they had come anyway. Captain Shin's voice came through the command channel. "Admiral, the Eternal Resolve is badly damaged. Shields at 20%. Weapons at half capacity." "Understood, Captain. Pull back to the rear and assist with evacuation coordination." "Negative, Admiral. My ship can still fight. Request permission to remain on the front line." Admiral Beak paused. She knew Shin. She knew his crew. They would not retreat while others were in danger. "Permission granted. But do not die out there, Captain." "That is an order." "Understood, Admiral." The battle became chaos. Raxan ships fired in all directions, but they could not match human coordination. Every time they targeted one human vessel, 3 others would attack them from different angles. The Deathworlders moved too fast, aimed too well, and refused to break. Pilot Haijin O led her fighter squadron through the middle of the enemy fleet. Her small ship twisted and spun between massive warships, avoiding weapons fire that would have vaporized her in an instant. "Squadron 3, follow me," she called out. "We're going for their command ship." "Copy that, squadron leader." The fighters dove toward Deathworlder's flagship. They were tiny against the massive vessel, like birds attacking a mountain. But they were not trying to destroy it. They were marking it with targeting lasers. "Target locked," Hygiene announced, sending coordinates to the fleet. Moments later, a barrage of missiles from 6 different human warships slammed into the Raxon command ship. Its shields flashed and flickered under the assault. Desek roared with fury. "Destroy those fighters. Destroy them all." But the fighters were already gone, spinning away into the chaos of battle, too fast to catch. On the station, the fighting had moved inside. Raxon boarding parties had launched before the human fleet arrived, and now enemy soldiers were in the corridors. Sergeant Boram Han crouched behind a barricade with her Marines, exchanging fire with Raxon troops. The enemy soldiers were big and strong, their gray skin like armor. But they were slow. Compared to humans, everything was slow. "Covering fire," Boram ordered. "I am moving left." Her Marines opened fire while she ran. She moved so fast that the Raxon could barely track her. By the time they aimed, she was already behind them. 3 quick shots. 3 Raxon soldiers fell. "Corridor clear," she announced. "Move up." Behind the combat zone, Medic Yunbai Song worked frantically to save lives. Wounded aliens filled the emergency medical area. Some had been hurt in the panic. Others had been caught in the crossfire. All of them needed help. A young Vethini child lay on the table in front of her. The child had been hit by debris and was bleeding internally. In a proper hospital, this surgery would take hours of careful work. Yunbai did not have hours. "Hold him still," she told the alien nurses helping her. "This will be fast." She cut deep and worked quickly. Her movements would have horrified alien doctors who believed in gentle, slow procedures. But gentle and slow meant death. Fast and rough meant life. The child survived. On the lower levels of the station, Dr. Yuna Park heard crying. She followed this sound and found a small Vethani girl hiding in a storage room, separated from her family. "It is okay," Yuna said softly, kneeling down to the child's level. "I am here to help." "What is your name?" "Trilly," the girl whispered. "I want my mother." "We will find her. Come with me." But between Yuna and the safe zone was a corridor filled with fighting. She could hear weapons fire and shouting. Going that way with a child would be suicide. Yuna thought quickly. She remembered the maintenance tunnels that ran through the station. They were narrow and dark, but they might be safe. "Trilly, I need you to be very brave." "Can you do that?" The little girl nodded. Yuna picked her up and carried her into the maintenance tunnels. It was dark and cramped. The sounds of battle echoed through the walls. But Yuna moved carefully, protecting the child with her own body. When they emerged near the safe zone, Trilly's mother was there, crying with relief. She took her daughter and held her close, then looked at Yuna with wonder in her compound eyes. "You saved her," the mother whispered. "You saved my child." Yuna just smiled. Anyone would have done the same. But that was not true. Not anyone. The aliens around her knew that most species would not risk themselves for a stranger's child. Humans were different. Outside in space, the battle was reaching its end. The Raxon fleet was breaking apart. Ships were retreating, jumping to hyperspace, fleeing in all directions. The conquerors who had destroyed so many worlds were running from the Deathworlders. Desek watched his fleet fall apart and felt something he had never felt before. Fear. Real fear. He had heard stories about humans. He had thought they were exaggerated. Now he knew the truth. The stories were not exaggerated. The stories were not enough. "Navigation," he ordered. "Prepare emergency jump. Get us out of here." "Yes, Warlord." On the Eternal Resolve, Chief Engineer Sung-Ho Lim worked miracles. Half the ship was damaged. Power systems were failing. But he refused to let the ship die. "Reroute power from sections 12 through 15, he ordered his team. "Bypass the damaged conduits. We need weapons online now." His people moved with desperate speed. They welded and rewired and improvised. A ship that should have been dead came back to life. "Weapons back to 70%, Sung-Ho reported to the bridge. Captain Shin's voice came back, tired but grateful. "Good work, Chief. Now keep us flying for another hour." "I will keep us flying for another year if you need it, Captain." Admiral Beak watched Thessic's command ship trying to escape. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, concentrate fire on the enemy flagship. Do not let him escape." Dozens of human vessels turned their weapons on the Sec ship. The massive warship shook under the assault. Its engines failed. Its shields collapsed. Thessic was trapped. He looked at the human fleet surrounding him. He looked at the station he had failed to conquer. He looked at his broken fleet. The Deathworlders had one dot in the quiet moments after the shooting stopped. The aliens on the station began to understand what had happened. They had been saved. Not by their own species. Not by the Galactic Union. By humans. Ambassador Krillix stood by a window, watching human ships patrol around the station. His compound eyes were wet with emotion. "They came for us," he whispered. "They came for all of us. Not just their own people. All of us." Beside him, Tae Sung-Cho leaned against the wall, exhausted but smiling. "That is what we do," he said. "We answer when someone calls for help." The Raxan Dominion's invasion was over, but the story was not finished yet. Warlord Thessic stood alone on the bridge of his dying ship. Around him, alarms screamed and fires burned. His fleet was destroyed. His invasion had failed. The humans had beaten him. He walked slowly to the main control panel and entered a code that only he knew. The self-destruct sequence began counting down. "If I cannot win," he growled, "then I will die with honor. And I will take these Deathworlders with me." But Thessic had forgotten something. His ship held over 300 crew members. Most of them were not warriors by choice. They were conscripts forced into service by Raxan law. Young males and females who had never wanted war. They would die too. Admiral Beak saw the self-destruct warning on her screens. "All ships, pull back to safe distance. The enemy flagship is about to explode." Human vessels began moving away from the doomed ship. It was the logical thing to do, the safe thing, but Captain Dongwu Shin did not move. "Captain," his first officer said nervously, "we need to withdraw. The explosion will destroy us." Shin stared at the Raxan flagship on his screen. He could see the life signs inside. 300 beings. Enemies, yes, but also people. Living beings who did not choose this fight. "How long until detonation?" he asked. 12 minutes. That is enough time. Shin opened a channel to his crew. "All hands, this is the captain. The enemy ship is about to self-destruct. There are 300 crew members aboard who will die. I intend to rescue as many as possible before the explosion. Anyone who wishes to stay behind may do so. I will not order anyone to risk their life for enemies." Silence. Then Lieutenant G1 Lee spoke. "Captain, I am coming with you." Chief Engineer Sung-Ho Lim followed. "My team is ready." One by one, every member of the crew volunteered. Not one person stayed behind. The Eternal Resolve, battered and barely flying, moved toward the Raxan flagship. It was a ship that should have been in repair dock. A ship held together by determination and emergency welds. But it docked with the enemy vessel anyway. Captain Shin led the rescue team himself. He ran through the burning corridors of the Raxan ship, calling out in Galactic Common, "We are here to help. Come with us if you want to live." The Raxan crew members stared at him with shock. They could not understand. These were the enemies they had tried to kill. Why would they come to save them? But there was no time for questions. The Deathworlders grabbed Raxan soldiers and pushed them toward the escape route. They carried wounded enemies on their backs. They risked their lives for people who had been shooting at them just minutes before. "Move! Move!" Shin shouted. "We do not have much time." They rescued 217 Raging crew members before the countdown became too short. Shin was the last human to leave the enemy ship. He pulled one final Raxan soldier through the airlock just as the Eternal Resolve separated from the doomed vessel. The explosion lit up space like a new sun. The shock wave hit the Eternal Resolve and sent it spinning. Hull plates cracked. Systems failed. But the ship survived. Everyone survived. On the bridge, Captain Shin lay on the floor where the explosion had thrown him. Every bone in his body ached. But he was smiling. "Status report," he managed to say. "We are alive, Captain," G1 answered. "All crew accounted for. All rescued Raxan are aboard." "Good." Shin closed his eyes. "Very good." On Quiet Harbor Station, the survivors emerged from their hiding places. 4,206 beings were alive because humans had answered a distress call. The station was damaged, but not destroyed. The people were scared, but not dead. Dr. Yuna Park walked through the crowds, helping where she could. She found families reuniting. She saw children hugging parents. She witnessed aliens who had been strangers before the attack, now holding each other like friends. Ambassador Krillix approached her slowly. His compound eyes were still wet with emotion. His four hands trembled. "Dr. Park," he said, "I must ask you something. I need to understand. What do you want to know?" "Why?" The word came out like a prayer. "Why did your people do this? You sent hundreds of ships. You risked war with the Raxan Dominion. Your Captain Shin almost died saving our enemies. Why?" Yuna thought about her answer. She thought about Taesung sending the SOS signal. She thought about Barum protecting aliens with her body. She thought about Dongwu saving the lives of soldiers who had tried to kill him. "Because that is who we are," she said finally. "We are human. When someone needs help, we help them. It does not matter who they are or where they come from. It does not matter if they are friends or strangers or even enemies. If they need us, we come." Krillix was silent for a long time. Then he reached into his robes and pulled out a small crystal that glowed with soft blue light. "This is a Vedani trust stone," he explained. "We give these only to those we consider true friends, those we would die for." He pressed the crystal into Yuna's hands. "You have earned this. All humans have earned this." Far away, at the Galactic Union Assembly Hall, representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss what had happened. They watched recordings of the battle. They saw human ships performing impossible maneuvers. They saw human soldiers protecting aliens. They saw civilian vessels crossing the galaxy to help strangers. And they saw Captain Shin and his crew rescuing enemies from death. The Raxan Dominion representative stood before the assembly. His species had been humiliated. Their fleet was destroyed. Their warlord was dead. But what hurt most was knowing that their own crew members were alive only because of human mercy. "The Raxan Dominion sues for peace," he announced. "We will return all conquered territories. We will pay reparations to our victims. We will not make war against humanity or their protected worlds." It was the greatest surrender in Raxan history, but the assembly was not interested in the Raxan anymore. They were watching a new recording. It showed Admiral Beak meeting with the rescued Raxan soldiers aboard a human ship. She was offering them food and medical care. She was treating enemies like guests. How do we understand these Deathworlders? The Corellian ambassador asked. They are fierce beyond measure, yet they show kindness to those who attack them. They are from a death world, yet they protect the weak. What are they? A young human diplomat named So Yeon Chai stepped forward. She was new to her position, nervous but determined. We are human, she said simply. Our world made us strong, but our hearts make us kind. The two are not opposites. They are the same thing. We are strong enough to choose kindness. We are powerful enough to show mercy. That is what it means to be human. The assembly was silent. They were starting to understand. Months later, Dr. Yuna Park returned to her research on Quiet Harbor Station. The repairs were almost complete. New species had requested to join the project. The station that had almost been destroyed was now busier than ever. She sat at her desk, looking at two objects. One was Krillix's trust stone, still glowing with warm light. The other was a photograph of her family back on Earth. A new communication arrived. It was from a species on the other side of the galaxy. They were facing a crisis. They were afraid. And at the end of their message, they had included 3 words that made Yuna smile. Please help us. They had heard the story of Quiet Harbor. They knew that humans answered distress calls. They trusted the Deathworlders. Yuna forwarded the message to Earth Command. She knew what would happen next. Ships would launch. Crews would mobilize. Humans would cross the galaxy to help strangers, because that was who they were. A new saying had spread across the galaxy since the Battle of Quiet Harbor. Every species knew it now. It was spoken in trade ports and diplomatic halls, in refugee camps and research stations. If you need help, call the Deathworlders. They will come. And they always did. Yuna set the photograph beside the trust stone and returned to her work. Outside her window, the stars stretched on forever, full of beings who now knew they were not alone. Full of beings who knew that somewhere out there, humans were watching. Humans were waiting. Humans were ready to help. The Deathworlders would always answer the call.